All right. Welcome to the podcast. Maggie, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you
Of
coming.
course. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here and do this with you finally.
I know, literally, our conversations are always a lot of fun. So I was like, let's just hop on the pod. So we'll see how this goes. We're going to have a lot of fun. And I appreciate, everybody on the other side of the screen, where however you're watching this. And yeah, we're just going to have fun. But Maggie, if you want to kind of introduce yourself a little bit and like tell me like what you're about and, just inform the people.
Yeah. So, well, as Josh just introduced me, my name is Maggie, and I am a confidence coach and also an EFT practitioner as well. And so, what I do is I work with women in order to help them overcome any anxiety, fear, insecurity, self doubt that is holding them back from stepping into the most confident and authentic version of themselves. And for me, this is something that I had gone through in my past. I struggled with it probably since I was a little girl, just feeling really shy and unconfident, not really being able to be myself. And as I got older, it just continued. And I realized that after helping myself through this, I was able to get other people through it as well because I know the pain that it causes people, women especially, to not be able to be themselves and not feel comfortable in their own skin or their own personalities, even. And so that's why I'm here doing what I'm doing.
I think that's beautiful. As like someone that has a niece, a mother, a sister, I have grew up in a household with lovely women that I'm so thankful for. But like, I can only imagine the added pressure when you don't feel like your best self, and I feel like there aren't always the best role models out there, and I feel like there's so much added pressure on women specifically to be able to like be themselves and be able to love and really step into their true frame, without having the added pressures of society of telling what is right and what's wrong. And I think internally everyone has the right answers, but it's nice when there's people like yourself that are helping people discover that for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I always specifically think of my niece. She's 10. I absolutely love Soph. That her name's Sophia. Love Soph to death. I always am there. Oh, look at it. Thumbs up.
The thumbs
Let's
up.
go. The thumbs up always follows me every time. Every time I'm on Zoom and stuff, let's say. So yeah, thumbs up for Soph. But I love it. I always think about her and everything, and like pretty much in a lot of what I do, like as even a guy like wanting to set a good example, like for her and stuff like that, and like allow her to feel confident. And like when she's going through stuff like in school, whether it's like arguments with her friends or I don't even want to say bullying, but like disagreements, if like somebody's picking on her or whatever case may be, like just being there and like allowing her to speak. I feel like especially being at like a very impressionable age at 10, like
Mm.
to feel heard is so important. Like, you know, as like the adult, like hearing her problems and it's like, hey, like, this is her whole world. Even if like they might be making fun of something like it seems menial to me, it's completely not. I'm like, this is her whole world.
Yeah.
And like really, really listening to that. And like, I think it's nice, like as, you know, a coach, helping adults out, they're kind of unlearning the baggage that they received as kids. And I think
Yeah.
that is so beautiful. Like it's very healing and everything. And I just love that. Like the fact that both you and I are coaches and helping people out, like kind of unlearning things is
Yeah.
so incredible. I actually had a question. So if you had, I guess like maybe like two or three things that you really feel like you've had to unlearn in the past like year or so, or well, we're early in 2024, but I guess like 2023, like what would you feel like is the most profound things like as you've been in this journey helping people and like, building yourself up?
Mm. A couple things came to mind. One, the main thing that stuck out to me is, first of all, I used to be a very anxious person. I never considered it anxiety back then, but then it did start to become more so anxiety. But I would worry about how a situation would go before it would even happen, as I know a lot of us do. A lot of overthinkers feel the same way. And I would play out in my head all the different situations and how things could go and all the scary routes that could happen. And I just realized that I was putting way too much pressure and way too much anxiety into my field of what could happen. When in
Mm.
reality, what I'm thinking could happen may not even happen. And so something that I did was letting go was a huge thing that in the past I've had a lot of like control issues, I feel like, and whether it's over like my family or certain situations happening. And I feel like I had to learn to let go and be like, okay, the anxiety that's being created right now, I have a choice to either sit on that and ruminate on it, or I can let it go and just know that when the time comes, when that event comes up, I trust myself enough to know that I can handle whatever comes up. Because I feel like a lot of times people will assume, like, oh, this is just a random example, but what if I see this person at this event and it's like an ex boyfriend or ex girlfriend or whatever, and they're so freaked out they can't even enjoy the say it's a concert. That's the first thing that came to my head. Say it's a concert. You can't even enjoy the concert. You can't even enjoy the weeks leading up to getting excited about the concert because you're so worried about seeing that person. What if they're not even at that concert? It's little things like that that I would get so in my head, so anxious, feel so unconfident about what I'm doing in my life, and I'm focusing on the things that I can't control. And
Mm.
so, what can I control? How I respond in that moment. I hope that answered your question, but that's like the first thing that really stuck out to me in what have I been able to really let go of and change to get me to where I am right now.
No, you completely answered it. I like love that, and I feel like a lot of people can resonate with that, myself included. That there's been times where I would overthink the potential of what could happen.
Hmm.
That it actually took me out of the moment. Whether even like as simple as like a conversation like this, if I'm so fixated on what I'm going to say next, am I really listening? No,
Yeah.
because I'm so worried about what's going to happen. Or like, oh, I whatever stories you want to tell yourself. Like some people are like, oh, I want to look smart. Oh, like and they literally lose the moment. And I definitely can resonate with this, and I'm sure a lot of people can. But like even with trips or concerts, like things like that, things that are supposed to bring you joy. You're going there to enjoy the specific event or hang out with that person like that you're wanting to hang out, whatever the case may be. And when you have this added pressure, you're constantly thinking about it and you're not enjoying the moment.
Hmm.
Um, as like I guess the younger generation will say is like bot activity, like you're on autopilot, right? You're like
Yeah.
literally like not present, which is so sad. And I can relate to this because I found myself oftenly in the past like few years going through quote unquote more of autopilot in my daily interactions because I was more concerned. So it was like either default response or I was just so worried about what was going to happen next. Like how I was going to describe something. Oh, like do I need to keep the conversation going? Like so overthinking that I didn't allow it to naturally flow, you know? So
Yeah.
I appreciate this as I definitely feel like people can really resonate with this. And
Yeah. I do
it's
want to say
important.
something too about what
Please.
you just said with like overthinking the next thing you're going to say. That was like my biggest problem for the longest time is I was so hyper fixated on literally what you just said. Am I going to come across as dumb? Am I is this going to make sense? Are people going to understand me? Are they going to look at me funny? Are they going to judge what I say? And all that thinking is taking me out of just being and
Hmm.
saying the things I want to say and getting my point across. And there's something about where your voice comes from. I don't know if I hope I explained this correctly, but I heard this thing where it's like if you're really in your head and you're overthinking, your voice is coming out of, is it your head or your throat? I think it might have said like your voice comes out of your throat and it gets all like clogged in there and it doesn't come out as like fluid and easy to understand. But when you're speaking without the overthinking, it comes from your heart and your message is received by the other person a lot easier.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like it, I think they say it comes from like your
Hmm.
where it's like coming from here, like your chest, like your heart. And
Yeah.
then when you're speaking like this, they could almost feel it. Like it's more engaging, like even I'm like doing the body language. But versus oh, I'm so worried it's like coming from here. Like
Yeah.
there is a difference, and like I've noticed that too. And one thing, I love the thumbs up. Like we're gonna keep. I hope we keep getting them. I think the podcast is loving what we're doing. So let's go,
Yeah.
Maggie. We're doing the thing.
It's a
We're doing the
sign.
thing we're supposed to. So like something I noticed too, and I actually had a great conversation with my one roommate, and him and I were talking. It was like we both noticed that like it's okay if there's moments of silence. Like wasn't anything that triggered this, but it was like we were just talking, and then like I don't know. He was like, "Oh yeah, like oh if I'm quiet, it's not because of you or anything." I was just like, "Oh yeah, no, dude, I completely get it." Like it's one of those things where it's like I equally am thinking in my head too, like about the next thing or what I'm doing, and I think there's a lot of resonance in that. If there's moments where it's more quiet, don't be so worried. Oh my goodness, it's awkward silence. Like, what is this person going to think? Sometimes they're just in their own space or just thinking about something else, or like maybe they're ultra present. I've been at like hangouts with people, for example, I'll go to New York with like friends and stuff, and sometimes I'm quiet. And it's the only reason being is because I'm taking in everything. Like
Yeah.
I'm looking at the architecture or like the painting of the angels in the ceiling or just like random like nooks and random weird things like that. I'm like, this is so cool. And I'm in awe. And oftenly I'll end up taking photos of it because, you know, that's the photography side of me coming out. But
Yeah.
it's like, I'm just so in it. And then like later on, I feel like I also by being in it, I have even more substance to talk about. Like, hey, like, did you notice that thing? I'm like, no. And I'll show him a picture. I'm like, dude, how did I miss that? So it's like I'm trying less to be in my head, but be more in my heart. The
Yeah.
saying like lead with your heart, like you and I were talking about this like the other day, but it's like that can apply to anything, you know, like just being fully present. I know that word gets thrown around and people don't, I don't know, there might be like now a stigma to it, like, oh, okay, I heard it, be present. But like when you really are like in the moment, you could take it all in, like
You can.
everything, like the senses, like the sounds, all that. And I don't know, I feel like it just makes the experience that much better. And especially even with like a person you're sharing it with, like you guys can really like enjoy it, you know?
I love that. Like right now, even I'm so present and I'm hearing every word you're saying, and it's like it's putting a smile on my face because I'm honestly just thinking about you being in that moment of taking in everything. Like I could almost feel what you felt when you saw that, which is so it's the empath in me. No, but it's cool and I think a lot of people because of our phones and technology and we get so distracted and like you said we go on autopilot, we stop being present and we stop listening to each other. Like the amount of conversations I've had with people where I'll say something, pour my heart out even, and they might be like multitasking maybe. I don't know. I've been with people where they're on their laptop, we're having a conversation at the same time. I'm like, it's okay, like we can still multitask. But then they'll look up at me and be like and they'll take a moment and pause and then give me their response, but it's like not from the heart. They literally just made shit up in that moment. It's like, oh yeah, like that makes sense. I feel you. And it's like, no, you don't feel me because you weren't paying attention. So I do
No, it's
think
true.
that that presence factor is so important and I think we've lost sight of it. But like right now, this feels so good to just be having like a conscious present conversation and like we're fully here with each other and we're enjoying it. Like people don't it feels like I'm going so deep with this, but it's like people don't experience that as much these days.
No, I completely agree. I don't think you're being like too esoteric, right? I think it's very true. And I feel like a lot of people are now noticing it. Like I feel like there's more people either getting off social media or limiting their time or just like I've been to like dinners with friends where we've literally put our phones on the table. Like it's
I
like,
love
hey,
that.
like it's like just eat with each other. Like, listen, if you want to take a photo of the food when it comes out, okay, great. Then put the phone away. It's like
Yep.
just be in the moment. Like we decided to leave our four walls to come and see each
Mm-hmm.
other. Let's enjoy each other's company. You never know. Time's a finite thing. It's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, here today, gone tomorrow, right? It's like just take it all in. And I recently went to a comedy club where literally the phones were put in a bag, and I actually had no issue with that. And like I'm very much also like when I go to the movie theater, my phone's either turned off or it's straight up on airplane mode. Like
Mm-hmm.
I want to immerse myself in this world. I want to be so present and like I paid money to watch the movie. Like I took time out of my day to be present. And like it's a little bit different with TV shows at home, but like when I'm like going out of my way to go somewhere to view something, I want to like take it all in. And I
Yeah.
like really am like there. Like I saw Dune 2 recently, absolutely loved it. It was so cool, but like just being in that world, I'm like, I'm just completely in awe. And
Yeah.
I like I looked at my buddy, it was just like that was incredible. He's like, yeah, like because we
And
were
he
both
was fully
there. Like,
immersed too.
yeah, we were just in it, and like we were able to like talk about it and like really dissect the movie and enjoy the beauty of like what the creative, because we're, oh, let's go for creatives, thumbs up for
Woo!
creatives. Woo, woo. Um, as you know, us as being creators and creatives, whatever, um, we're constantly like we're putting our heart and soul into the work, and that's like it really is part of us. So it is beautiful when someone else can admire it and actually take it in. And it, oh,
That's so
what?
funny. I can't.
Yeah, look at that. The algorithm didn't like that. Oh no, that's crazy. But like, I'm gonna say it again. I was like, I don't care about the thumbs down. Take in the work and be present. And thumbs down for that algorithm for disagreeing.
Yeah.
I was like, that's crazy. I'm gonna figure out a way. I'm gonna turn that off eventually. But
Yeah.
it's okay. Let's enjoy the thumbs up, thumbs down. But in all sincerity, it's like the beauty of also going to like an art museum. Oh, okay. Um, the art museum that I've talked about it several times, whether it was on phone call or podcast, but I was so in love with the Metropolitan Museum. I don't think I could say it enough. Like, I don't think I've truly, like, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I don't think I've truly ever felt full, like, immersion in a museum and full, like, bliss ever
Mhm.
looking at art the way I did in there. It was like the most important pieces of art in one spot, and just like I was just mesmerized. I was like, this is incredible. But it's like, imagine if like I was just glued to my phone. Yes, I was taking pictures, but it was super deliberate. Like, I'm looking at everything, I'm like, I need to take a photo of this because I'm just admiring it so much, that like I want to like do the purpose of what a camera was, which is capturing a moment, right? In time. And like now I look back at those photos, I'm like, oh, it was so much fun. Like, and anytime I
Yeah.
want to kind of bring back those feelings I had in that moment, that photo can trigger that, which is so
Yeah.
cool about like art or books or anything. Like it's like a song. So we'll do music. Music specifically can transport you in any moment. Like
Yeah. Well,
that's so
that's like
cool.
with concerts, that's the tough thing about concerts is I was always the one who was recording every single song because I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I have to get like I have to get this song recorded live because this is my favorite song that he's ever played, whatever." But then it gets to a point where yes, it can transport you back to that memory and that's amazing, but maybe only do a couple of songs rather than the
Mhm.
whole show. And now I take out my phone probably like a couple times just to get like of the artist or of the song he's playing or her. And I'm thinking of Machine Gun Kelly in my head because that's the most recent concert I've been to.
Yeah.
Um, but just enjoy the experience. And I'm like opening my eyes and I'm like, how can I open my eyes anymore to like fully take this in right now? Um, but it's hard because you want to have those memories still and like be able to look back at your phone and be like, oh, luckily with the friend that I was with recorded the whole show. So I was like, oh, I don't have to take my phone out at all. I got all her videos.
No, I literally completely feel this. Like when I went to see Post Malone like last year, I was so happy. By the way, actually, it was funny because Alex and I on the last podcast, him and I talked about it when I was on his,
Yeah.
and but it's like I had so much fun because he's one of my favorite artists. He has been for years. I
Yeah.
get that people are like, oh, like he makes radio hits. I'm like, bro, honestly, I don't even listen to the radio. Like, I just listen
Yeah.
to like whatever's on my playlist. And like, that was the one artist, not to be that guy, but I will for a moment, that actually bought like his vinyls and stuff. And like, I was listening to the songs from all the way. Yeah, let's go for Post from top to bottom. I'm listening to his whole album and like really listening to it. Like,
Yeah.
and even songs like Stay and stuff like that, or even his most recent album, there was a song Overdrive, which I love. Like,
Yeah.
I just like take it all in and I'm like bumping it, and like to just see him like sing his heart out, like I was happy. I was just happy to be there. And like
Yeah.
I did take like a lot of photos more than videos. Like I would just get like I would zoom in like really really close and I would see him playing guitar. I would just snap a photo. And like, but in that moment, like I was just like, I just have to enjoy the song. And like, it was full
Yeah.
on karaoke on like a lawn. The venue I was at had like lawn seats or whatever, so I'm just standing, just singing. Like, it
Oh,
was
it's the
so much
best
fun.
feeling in the world.
It was the absolute best, and like just being there, you know. And I think like a lot of what we do helps people end up working on that side of them. Like we work together, and like obviously it's always on the individual. It's something that I had a great conversation yesterday with someone I actually met here for the first time. I bumped into somebody in Barnes and Noble, and literally he was like, "Let's get coffee." I'm like, "Let's do it." So it was shout out to Barnes and Noble. I need stock in them. Um, I really do at this point. But it's like, you know, him and I were talking about. It's like, oh my goodness, I lost my train of thought for a second. But it was like just being present and like what we do like allows people. Oh, okay, I got it. Ready? So people need to want to change. Like it's one of those things where it's like we can't force change. We're only here to help them. And like I was explaining what a coach does. So I gave actually almost like a physical coach type of example. So I'm like, okay, say you were boxing and you know you're kind of hitting a little too high or a little bit to the left. Like the whole point of a coach is to kind of like help you shift a little bit and kind of give you the reasoning behind it and guide you. But unless you're physically doing the thing, you're never going to change.
Yeah,
And I
I like
think, but all right, I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm not gonna lie. I heard one similar, but it was about golf, and I'm like, I can't. I like go to the driving range, but I can't resonate with a lot. But people with like the visual of boxing, like you can imagine like hitting like a target or a bag, and like if your hand's too low or too high, I mean, you can almost like break your wrist or whatever. Like you
yeah.
can injure yourself. So like it has to be a certain way. And but when him and I were explaining it, it was just like, you know, I'm happy that you and I specifically and a few other people in this space, which I'm so thankful for everybody. I'm so happy to be here. But it's like, you know, we get the chance to help people
Hmm.
like almost find it in themselves to start unlearning things so they can be more present, to have more gratitude in moments and like, you know, it's beautiful. Like when you start genuinely loving life, you want to love it even more.
Oh
You
yeah.
want to like take it all in. You want to like just I don't know, like lead with love again. Like you want to love on everybody. You're like, dude, like because you know what it's like not to love life as much, you know? And I
Yes.
and actually that brings me to this question. So what got you in the space? Like I know we kind of briefly hit upon it, but like do you feel like some people label it like an ego death, like when they have like a serious thing in their life where it's like they had to change? Like, do you feel like there was like a specific moment in time, or do you feel like it was like combination of things that inspired you to change and like start on this path of helping people?
Well, the time in my life that I always go back to is in 2020, I did go through a very difficult breakup.
Mm.
And I think that's where I'll start because everything prior to that, I didn't feel good. I felt insecure. I felt inauthentic, dumb. Like I had a bunch of these insecurities. But this was like the wake up moment when he broke up with me, where I was like, shit, I need to heal. I need to learn how to heal. And in that healing, I realized that there was a lot of areas of my life where I realized, oh, maybe I don't actually love myself fully. Maybe I don't feel good enough or worthy of love. And all these things started coming up. And that really everything brought back another layer and it allowed me to really dive deep into personal development. I started reading so many books. My first book actually, oh my gosh, I have it right here. This is the book that I give to my clients when I onboard them as one-on-one clients. You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. And it's like I look at this as like the Bible of self-help. Like it's very easy to read. She's so funny. It brings in like manifestation too, which I absolutely love. And that's the book that like you have a shitty life, all right, change your life. Also, I will say, not that I like to use social media for this because I think like live outside of the metaverse, but TikTok did help me a ton with my breakup. And the reason I say that, because I don't ever want to think like, oh, just go on your phone and distract yourself or your emotions or whatever. But TikTok's For You page is so damn accurate that if you start liking things that are all around, like, one, breakups, you're going to see a lot of sad stuff. But I think somehow that allowed me to feel all of what I was going through. And then I started seeing, like, everything happens for a reason and forgiving them, and you can, like, still live your life. You have a choice to come out of this. Like, more inspiring content started to come up. And I just always was watching that on replay, and I really drilled it into my subconscious. So I think that was like the first moment where I really dove into personal development. So it's such a big timeline, but let me think of how to start this again, or com- complete this. Um, we broke up. I went through the breakup. I went through the healing process. And then as I was feeling better, this is also when COVID happened. Like, this is the midst of COVID. As I was starting to feel better, I was coming home, or we were already home. Everybody was coming home for the summer, and this guy that I had dated was also in my friend group. Tough. Whew, tough. So I still had to see this guy, which was really tough because we only dated for a month. I've said this in previous like podcasts or content, but for those of you who haven't really heard my story, we dated for a month, but we had 7 years of history back and forth. So like you can only imagine how how tough that was. Then you think like, oh, we only dated for a month, like get over it. It wasn't that serious. No, it was a lot of my emotions were involved with this guy for this long. And so then we all had to come together. It's kind of awkward, but I was always like, oh, it doesn't need to be awkward. I still want him as my friend. It's this important to me. So, like, whatever. Um, and then one thing led to the next. And I'm like, how do I phrase this without it coming across really bad? I will say, this is my experience. I'm not putting anyone down. This is just personally like my experience. But one of my friends in the group decided that she wanted to get involved with him, kind of created a little bit of a mess. I found out about it, wasn't too happy, had a mature conversation, wasn't really respected for it. And in all of that, this basically divided the friend groups. And for the longest time before like I knew what was going on between them, I was still being invited to things, and I kept thinking to myself, why am I hanging out with them still? I'm this hurt, but I'm still going to hang out with them. Like that doesn't really make sense if I feel like my friends are kind of doing me wrong. And so I made the really difficult decision to start saying no and start not showing up to these events where we'd all get together. And that alone was really hard because I had like also 7 years of history with all these people as my friend group. And one thing led to the next, friend group completely divided when we confronted things, and I felt like I had lost all my friends. I just felt like and it's not true because I did still have individual friends, but in that moment I felt so lonely. And so that was kind of a moment where I was like, all right, how can we make this a good situation, like a good turnaround almost. And so instead of thinking like, oh, I have no friends, let's think of all the people I do have in my life that do care about me and are willing to put effort into me and love into me. And the next day, we celebrated, I think it was like my brother's graduation party from high school or something. And I was surrounded by people who loved me. And I allowed myself to cry the night before about everything. But the next day, I like shot back up and I'm like, I deserve better. I know I deserve better in my friendships and my relationships. And probably a week later, I went off to college. It was coming back to, in the fall. And this is actually when I started doing an internship. So this was my senior year internship in college. And I was so nervous because I kind of mentioned it before. I had all these limiting beliefs that I was dumb, I'm not capable, I'm not going to succeed. Like, what am I throwing myself into? I never really tried hard back then. And this internship, let me tell you, pushed me so far. Like, I joke about this, but like I'm half joking. I say that when I completed this internship, or when I was going through it, I truly believe my frontal cortex fully developed. Because I don't think that I needed this experience to go through that was so out of my comfort zone. in order to believe in myself. Because, like we said, as coaches, what we do is we are only the guide. We can only shift them in the right direction, but they need to take the action. And
Mhm.
so I was pushed to by my like learning advisor coach in school. Um, yeah, like let's do an internship that's actually gonna propel you forward. And I got in there. I started doing the work. My supervisor I had was absolutely amazing, and she really pushed me to be like, "Oh, you've never." It was at a hotel, but she's like, "Oh, go downstairs and talk to the bride for the event that we're putting on for them for their wedding." And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, just go talk to them." I'm like, I don't know what to say." And she's like, "You'll figure it out. Just go down." I'm like, "Ugh." And in that moment of I don't know what I'm doing, that's when I realized just trust yourself. Whatever comes out is going to be the right thing in that moment. And if it's not a failure. You learn from it. And that alone was like so pivotal for me, that entire experience. Um, After the internship, sorry, it's a long conversation. It's a long story, but I'm trying to make it make sense in the most sequential order. But then after the intern or throughout the internship, I was still friends with some of my college friends. And then all of a sudden, they started to not really want to hang out with me anymore. And I was like, what is happening? Mind you, when the whole breakup thing happened, I also had this spurt of going through a ton of anxiety. And so I stopped enjoying drinking. I didn't want to have late nights. I liked my early nights and all that. And I truly believe that these friends just stopped enjoying who I became because I wasn't. I made a post on this. I felt like I wasn't fun anymore because I didn't like going out. I didn't like drinking. And they loved doing that. And personally, I think that the girl that was kind of, I don't want to say in charge of our friend group, but you always have that one person that's like the ringleader, it feels like. Um, she just kind of was like not really into hanging out with me anymore. And I think it's because she didn't have me under her control anymore, if I'm being honest, because I was a follower. And I 100% followed her in everything that she did. I wanted to be like her. I thought she was so cool. I looked up to her. Um, so it's like I lost that group then because a lot of the other girls in there were also followers and kind of just naturally not took her side, but kind of just swung with her. And I had another moment where for the weekend I let myself cry. I'm like, I don't feel fun anymore. I don't have any friends. What it I must be the problem. If I lost my whole friend group at home and now I lost my whole friend group at college, like what is wrong with me? Because usually that's how it works. If like all signs point to you if you're the problem, you know? Um, but after doing a lot of reflecting and just realizing, like, no, I'm very happy that I went through this growth spurt. I don't drink anymore, and that's okay. I don't need to be like everybody else. If anything, I'm healthier, so it's fine. Um, and I realized that a lot of the people I was surrounding myself with didn't actually care about me as much as I cared about them. And I I still had a lot of different friends. So I'm like, okay, let's open our eyes. We still have people around us that care about us. How can we put the focus into them? Because they're going to give the same effort back. And that mindset shift alone propelled me forward. I had an amazing rest of my college semester, graduated, got into a great relationship at the time, and yeah, and I've just been riding the wave ever since then. Things just have worked out my favor. I mean, it was a kind of a bumpy road after college as well with my career. It say, let me go into this too. Um, I was kind of bullied at my career coming out of college, just because I was a 22-year-old supervisor and like amazing for me. I was a supervisor. That's so cool. But the adults didn't really respect me, so that was a huge thing. Like ageism is real,
Mhm.
and I just had to learn like I don't want to put myself in these situations anymore where I'm not going to be respected. I'm not going to be cared about. And it all follows a pattern from everything I've explained with this story. Um, and then I don't know, I started seeing ads on Instagram being like, hey, you want to become a life coach? And I'm like, well, maybe. And I just started doing more research and realizing like the personality traits that I have kind of embody what a coach is.
Mhm.
And I thought, I don't know, it seems to align. Let's give it a try. And here I am today, 3 years later, doing it absolutely what I love.
No, I love it. There's a few things I would love to highlight from your story. So from the beginning, it was a lot of growing pains, a lot of loneliness that showed up, a lot of misunderstanding because you were growing. But then what was nice though with you doing the internship, it started instilling more confidence in you because you started seeing what you were able to do. Like what I like about coaches is the fact that they don't do the thing for you. They instruct you. They're there to help you. They're by your side. But the best coaches are the ones that are there to guide you. And like, and I guess like I'll use this example. It's like a parent with training wheels. If your kid's on the bike with the training wheels, eventually you have to take them off. And like you kind of just let them go. You let your hand off their back and they start learning it. They might fall. They might bump their knee. It happens. But then you literally walk them through it. You're like, hey, like this happens. Like we'll put a band-aid on it. Don't give up on the bike, pick it up.
Yeah.
We're gonna do this again tomorrow. But that's like the beauty with like doing things like internships or even working for a good company. Like that's one thing. Like I am happy that even though in 2020 I started my photo and video business, I also had a career at, I don't know if I want to necessarily say their name, but no, I don't have any bad blood with them and stuff, but a really big tech company. You can fill in the blanks. There's a handful of them. You might be talking on their phone. Anyway, so no, but no, whatever. I'll just tell you, it's Apple. So Apple had one of the
Fuck.
best
No,
like.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No, I have no bad will or anything. I'm very thankful to them. Actually, I learned a lot. So the specific role that I was in was actually more of a teaching role. So I was teaching you photo, music, video, drawing, all of that. So I had days where I literally just had to study, learn a class, and teach it. And I never in my life thought I would teach ever. So I went from being the student freshly out of college, went into IT school, completely hated it. It didn't feel like it was in line with me. Even though I love tech, it just, there was, I don't know, it just didn't feel right. It led to the door at Apple, and I learned. But the reason why I'm kind of explaining this further is I always encourage people, listen, even if you want to be an entrepreneur, I encourage you to do it. But sometimes what's beautiful is actually being in the classroom learning from other businesses, allowing yourself to be in the space to build the confidence, the resilience, that word specifically, the resilience when you kind of bump your knee like the little kid on the bike where you're like, oh man, and hopefully, fingers crossed, there's a good mentor, manager, or somebody that can help aid you, help guide you, and say, hey, like, listen, that mistake is common, but here's how we rectify it. And like, I'm
So
very
important.
thankful. It's so important. And I'm very thankful from that corporate setting that I was able to find a few people that I worked with that I'm still friends with to this day really helped guide me during that period because it was like, jumping out of school, not really knowing what's going on. I just started a business. Like there wasn't at that time, I felt like enough resources, which there were. I just wasn't being resourceful. We'll get on that later. But it was like, it was still the process, right? And I'm glad I took some time to work for, a great company, great managers, and be in the position where I had to learn and also teach because that was a skill set that I now am now doing as a coach that I'm very thankful for. So very full circle. And like I'm sure as like more of a leadership position that you were in, sure it may have been difficult after, but you still were in a place where you had to teach and look for or look after people, which
Yeah.
we do pretty much every day. We have people that are relying on us, that accountability, and like when we're tired, when we're groggy, when we don't want to show up, we have to think of those people and then step back into that version of ourselves that is the serving, the one that is bigger than us.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It always comes full circle. It seriously does. And it makes you just made me think like when I was at the hotel as an internship and at my job right out of college as the supervisor, I was, as it sounds, I was supervising whether it's the high school kids or the adults. And I'd always taken on that leadership role that I didn't realize I would end up stepping into as a coach, as a confidence coach. And same thing at the hotel. Yes, I was an intern, and I actually, well, side note of something I forgot to mention is it was a rotational experience, is what I called it.
Mm.
So basically, it was a hotel, but I got to experience all the different departments. So I was doing weddings and like event planning. I was doing front desk, sales, marketing. I even asked to bartend at some point. I'm like, who knows? Let me just give it a try. And also, I was like, I would love, because this was my experience too, so I could choose what I wanted to learn. And especially since it was COVID, there were not as many events going on. So I asked my supervisor, I was like, I would love to learn the more managerial side of the hotel. And she was like, sweet, let's do it. And there, I learned a lot of stuff. And at one point, I remember my supervisor texting me and being like, hey, I'm super sick. Do you mind filling in as manager on duty tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock in the morning? And I was like, yes. I was like, well, first of all, that was not the first reaction. First reaction to myself was like fear, like I'm not okay. Like, no, I can't do that, because it's like, who am I? I'm just the little intern who doesn't believe she's good enough just yet. But then I thought, she trusts me enough to do this. I know I can do it. And that's what coaches do. That's what supervisors do, is they show you what you're capable of
Mhm.
by just putting like words of, I almost said affirmation, words of encouragement into you and making you realize that you are worthy, you are deserving, you are capable, because you are all these things. We just,
Absolutely.
after years, I mean, years of subconscious programming, we don't believe in ourselves because there's been people in our past who have just torn us down, whether that be not everyone, but like whether that be our parents' voice telling us a certain thing, like, and it translates into feeling like we're not good enough, or a teacher or a kid at school who bullied you, or whatever it might be. Then we start believing we're not good enough, but we were always good enough. And that's what supervisors, that's what coaches, people in management, hopefully if they're good management, we don't always get so lucky, but that's what they're supposed to do. Um, and even, you know what's funny too, side note, is after being in management, after being a supervisor, I guess that same thing, after being a coach and knowing how to work with people. Also, I was a hospitality major in school, so like that really helped with my people skills. I'm like, damn, there's a lot of shitty managers out there that just don't care. And like, you
Mhm.
are the head of everything. You're going to see your employees, your staff not do so well because you're not speaking into them, like speaking encouragement
100%.
into them.
Yeah, I would love to add upon this. So I was talking to a friend of mine. He's a business owner as well, and I've noticed that he's more he's adopted more of a demeanor of like stoicism, right? And I understand why, and I get it. Like being in a leadership position, sometimes you literally kind of have to be unfazed when things inevitably don't work and when the pressure's high. But one thing that I'm glad that him and I were talking about is like there is like a line and a gauge you have to switch between deploying empathy and being able to like pour into people and coach them when you're in like a management coach position, just kind of like that role, and then go back into being more of the stoic, stronger figure. And I think like it really is a line, and like you just have to make sure you don't lose yourself in either of them, because sometimes you can be the overly giving person who's more of people pleasing because they feel like they
Mm.
have to. That is also unhealthy too. And I've noticed, and I'm sure I remember you've talking about this in the past, maybe just our conversations, but it's like I was more riding the line of overly nice,
Mm.
people pleasing, that I lost myself in the process. There's literally a lyric that Drake said. He was like, live so much for others, I forgot how I feel. And that's a bar.
Whew. Mic drop. Thumbs
Boom.
up.
Thumbs up. And of course it's not thumbs up. And
I
let's say,
know.
oh man, when we need it. Come on,
I
algorithm.
know.
Um, but in all reality though, like it's there's a lot of validity to that statement. It's like you lose yourself literally pouring into others that you forgot to pour into yourself. And I think
Mm.
that's an important cautionary tale for coaches, mentors, mentees, that like you have to continually working on yourself, like constantly. Like this is a lifestyle thing. Like, and I told that actually to a client of mine. He was it was more of like mindset, but it was also a physical thing. He was upset because he's been in the gym for 6 months. He's not seeing as much of the results as he likes. And I simply responded that it's like, do you want to just get jacked for the summer, or is this a lifestyle that you want to be healthy?
Mm,
And he was like, yeah, you're right. Like, I want to be on the healthier side. I'm like, it's a process. And I'm like, what you may be doing might be a simple tweak, or it might be something that can be supplemented, or you could figure it out. I'm like, you know what I mean? So
supplement it,
just,
replace. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm like, just keep playing with the process. And, I also recently heard too, and I know this quote's been thrown around everywhere, but it's like, the process is the prize. Like
Hmm.
this is, for a lack of better words, the journey that everyone talks about. But it's like one of those things you have to take it in. Like, even coaches, they confidence coaches specifically and mindset coaches, it's like, hey, like we ourselves are battling our own mindset. We are battling moments where we feel ourselves inadequate. And it's not a reflection of like our capability, but it's in that moment where it's like, okay, I have to shift gears, or I have to like remind myself, because once again, it's mental reprogramming all the time, consistently. I am worthy. I am able to give this. I'm able to serve. And if not, I have enough resilience and tough skin to be able to
Mm,
endure what may happen,
yes.
you know?
Yes, I love the way you worded that because
Thank you.
like you said, just because we're coaches doesn't mean that we're perfect. Doesn't mean that we don't have bad days. I just invested in a self-love coach, which I'm so excited about because of course, I teach confidence and I teach self-love as well because it's all part of confidence. And I feel yeah. And I just feel like even though I do have that sense of self-love, that confidence, it's still important that I myself continue my journey and make sure that I'm consistently doing the practices and keeping up with this so that like you said, you grow stronger. You then, when you're not working with these people, you can do it on your own still. You can work through it without having like a total, I mean, I was going to say total mental breakdown. Sometimes I still have mental breakdowns, but without losing yourself is really what it is. And being able to stand up tall and like stand back up. That's what it's all about. When you're confident, just because you feel confident does not mean you're not going to be shot down. But when you get shot down, or maybe not shot down, but pushed down, whatever it is, as long as you're able to help yourself stand up, and that I say help yourself because it's just you and your brain, your mind, whatever, you need to be able to help yourself back up after being able to work with a coach. And then look for other coaches as necessary if that's what it means. It's a
100%.
never ending journey.
No, it is. It's truly a lifestyle. And it's one of those things where you yourself don't know where your strengths and things that you need to work on are. Like,
Hmm.
we only get a portion of the story. We can only help you as far as we can. And obviously, we're a well of knowledge willing to give some of that and experience. And I always heard, and I love this, and I stick by this statement, like the people that have dealt with the most are the most compelling and some of the most best people to listen to, because they've had to overcome so much. And that's why I always say, like, hey, like, especially with like building a personal brand, coaching, whatever, always share your story. Even business
Hmm.
owners too. Like, when people can get to like know the person behind the camera, the person behind the brand, like they're well, like they end up buying in more because they like that person, what they've had to
Mm.
overcome. Like, I don't know. I think it's super, super important. But I'm happy that we're both lucky enough to be on this journey to serve and help, and we learn things even from ourselves, like from or about ourselves when we're helping others. Like,
Hmm.
there's been times where I'm just speaking and I'm like, I just spoke to myself. Like, I literally in that moment I was helping them and I'm like, I think I needed to hear this
Yeah.
myself. Like, it's beautiful. And like, once again, that's no ego. That's nothing. It's just like, oh my goodness, like I gotta listen to my own advice. So we're like, in that moment, you just think of something. There it is, and that you end up pouring into that person, and it just even resonates with you. Like, oh man, like
Mm.
I needed to remind myself that, like, or I don't know. It's beautiful. Like, this journey is just, it's the law of reciprocity. It's a give. As much as it's selfish because we feel great helping people, we in turn also receive that, like, I don't know, that joy of just serving and giving. Like, there's nothing like it. Just being
Yeah.
able to like help. You know.
And also when something too is when we embody, that's why it's so important to embody what you teach because when you can embody what you teach, one, it comes off more authentic because people want to be with you on this journey because they're like that person did it already. That person knows how to help me. But also when you're giving advice to someone, to know that on some level you're also taking that advice. Because if you're not taking your own advice, again, we're not perfect. Sometimes we're like, oh shit, I need to hear that. But when you're not doing what you're trying to tell the client to do, it's also going to come off as inauthentic. It's an
Mhm.
energy thing. Like they can just feel they're not going to want to do it as much because you're not doing it.
No, it's true. I had, and this is like I guess for like the coaches and just like people in general, like doing something. Um, for me, I had an experience where like I was talking to a client and he brought up something that I straight up told him was like, that's not my area of expertise. I'll be very honest
Mm-hmm.
with you, but I am willing to help you find the answer. If not, whatever resources I find, I'm willing to share because, and I was like, and I told him directly, it was like, whatever you learn that resonates, please share it. Like, I'm also wanting to learn as well.
Yeah.
And like, also, like, I think there's a lot of level of like transparency there. It's just like, hey, like, listen, like, I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers, and I'm not going to begin to tell you that I do, but I'm also willing to learn. And that's in that moment leading by example as well as like, hey,
Yes.
like I'm a student, like I'm still learning. I'm still, doesn't take away what I already know, but I'm also wanting to learn more. You know, there's always better processes. There's always so many things like, and it's great because iron sharpens iron. It's one of those things where it's like, hey, like I continue growing too, and it makes it more fun. And he
Makes
really
you more
appreciated that.
human.
Correct. If I'm like, oh yeah, I'm this all uh whatever, all knowing being, I'm like, dude, I'm not God. Like I'm never gonna
Yeah.
begin to be like that. I don't want to be. I'm not. And that's one thing I actually can appreciate for Tony Robbins. He's like, dude, I'm not your guru. Like I'm just a coach. I'm just a teacher. I'm here to share what I've learned and what I
Mhm.
know has been tried and true that works for people. And very much in that light, I'm here to do the same. It's like I'm gonna teach you what I've learned, what people that are so incredible that I've learned from them, like literally a whole bookshelf full of
Yeah.
like, like those are my mentors. There's times where I need something and I need to like go back and pick up a book and, whatever. And I always encourage that to people is like keep searching and like really listen, be like, hey, what in this moment do I need? Because all of us are just humans, like we need to like continue filling up our cup, you know?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I'd actually like to ask you a question now.
Sure.
Speaking of your bookshelf, what is the book that either got you into personal development or was a like aha moment, or you said like ego death, you called it. Like what was the pivotal book that you were like, wow, this changed my life?
It's a good question. And I talk about this book frequently. And listen, I'm going to tell you, the beginning is hard to get through this book. It's
Oh,
called
I know what you're saying.
Psycho Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. This book, the beginning is like he's talking about plastic surgery, he's talking about cybernetics. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, bro, get to the point. Like, as like somebody that lives in this era where everything is like instant gratification, I had to slow back
Mm,
and like I had to remember like, hey, like he's bringing this up for a reason. What is it? And essentially the mind is just like a computer, can be reprogrammed, whatever. um Plastic surgery, why he used that example is like there's been cases where people have gotten surgery and they, for example, say, and I'm not saying this in any derogatory way, but say if I had a feature on my face that was either I felt too big or there was a disformity, I get surgery, and for some reason whatever stories I had towards that inadequacy in quotations still remained there after I had the surgery. Well, it was never about the cosmetic, it was internal. So the book is talking about the self image and why the self image is the most important thing about ourselves because it gauges everything, what we feel we're worthy of doing, what we feel capable of doing, all of that stuff. And that book really opened up my eyes to be like, oh my goodness, you're right. Like the way I perceive myself literally gauges my actions, the way I speak to people, my inactions, my inability, whatever thing. It's just how I see myself. And no matter what, I can become this coach, become this strong figure, whatever. But if I do not see myself in alignment with that thing, I will always revert back to what I feel I was in the past. Whatever story, whatever thing I thought. It's really, really incredible. But like you can think of your self image as like a thermostat. So if your house is like set at, I mean, 60s might be too cold, but whatever. Say it's like at 60 degrees or something along that lines, and you raise up the temperature, and the house is like, well, this isn't the normal thing, and it kicks back to 60. That's how the self image works. It always will revert back to that. And there's been a lot of case studies, for example, once again, not knocking, not shaming, but like people that have lost a significant amount of weight, but they see themselves as big boned or unhealthy, whatever it is, and they revert right back to it. And because it was no longer the image of, you know what I mean? But
Yeah, or people
versus
that win the
like,
lottery.
oh, that's actually an incredible one. It's true. If they felt that they were non-abundant, that they were poor, whatever the case, whatever stories, right, whatever words you want to attach to it, they will revert back to it. But if their self-image now became, I'm abundant, I'm worthy, I'm someone that gives, I'm someone that contributes, money flows to me abundantly and quickly, and all the good stuff, all the affirmations, but you truly believe it, then that's what you're going to be. You know, so the
Mm-hmm.
book really, really like drives that home. So like now the self-image one that I changed was like, I now more of a healthy person, because the gym, like I've always been going to the gym for years, but fell off, came back, vice versa. But now I'm just like, no, like my standard is I'm someone that's healthy, that works out for themselves for a longer life, you know, to give
Yeah, the
whatever.
why. You have to have the why.
Correct. So self image can really link to your whys. That's the best way to change your self image. So that book, Psycho-Cybernetics, was the one for me that, like, once again, beginning a little rough to get through, but once you start getting to the midsection on, it goes off. Like, talks about things like forgiveness too, like forgiving yourself, forgiving others, like especially yourself. I feel like we will extend so much grace to people, but we won't extend it to ourselves. And it's like, why? Like,
I know.
you're
Should
not
be
your
the easier
past.
part. What?
I right. It sounds almost counterintuitive. You would think, oh, like whatever, it's myself, of course. No, we tend to beat ourselves up so much, but you're not your past and you're not your mistakes. And that book really drives it home, is like, you have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive others. And also even it talks a little bit about visualization. Like, it talks about creating like a quiet space in your mind where you can like think of all the things that inspire you. For me, I'll listen to music and just like, you know, mindfulness, whatever. But that book about the self image, still to date, I have to like remind myself, okay, is this actually in line with what I truly want? Like, is this me? And this moment, this conversation is my truest frame. But then when we get off the call, it could be literally, I always joke, it's like it really is like a video game, of course. I have option A, I can click this button and I go this way, or I hit B and I go this way.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's interesting, but like it really is that simple of like decisions compounding, either aligning with yourself or kind of going out. But when your self image is someone that's whatever, fill in the blanks, healthy, abundant, whatever, you're going to notice your decisions going to be a lot easier. Hey, like A is not good, B. And it's almost second nature. You don't even think now. You just like do the decision. You
Yeah.
hit the button. You just do what you're supposed to do. Like the gym in the morning is default now. I don't think about it. I get up, grab my bag, second nature. And then when I don't go is when I don't feel good. And I've noticed
Mhm.
that because I'm out of line. I'm like, hey, like I feel off. And it's so important to like have those habits that attach to your self image, because they really do build the confidence that we're talking about. It reaffirms like something you know to be, oh, well, I'm not this person. No, that's false. You are confident because you showed up to the gym, you showed up for your family, you showed up to your job on time, you showed up for the podcast. Like,
Mhm.
so what? This thing didn't work out. Okay, you have all these other wins under your belt. You're right.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And that's also what I think there's so many different definitions to what confidence is, but truly I think one of the main definitions is trusting yourself and showing up for
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Because when you don't show up for yourself, and of course you can say, like, oh, stepping out of your comfort zone, doing this and this, but that all encompasses the idea of, oh, what did I just say? Of
It's like confidence and like
stepping
that
into yourself.
yeah, you're stepping into your true self, that confident true version, right? Because
Yeah.
you have all those things that just reaffirmed it. Like, you've
Yes.
built, they call it like the winner effect, but it is real. Like, that's why like they always tell you, like, if you're going through like the worst day possible, it's stacking the little wins. You
Mm-hmm.
make your bed, you decided to drink water, you decided to walk, like you're almost babying and nurturing yourself out of it. And I've noticed even the days that I go through the most, it's like I have to continue the path. And like, even if it's small wins, I'm still like, okay, I still did this. I still did this. And like, it is, you said trust with yourself. I always say, confidence is having credibility with yourself, not
Yes.
letting, not
Not
letting
letting things
yourself down.
slide.
Hmm.
I
Keeping
also
your word to
think, oh,
you.
sorry. What did you
No,
say?
I said keeping your word to yourself. Like,
Yes. I think what's important too, it's it's definitely slightly different of what I'm going to say with men and women, just because like we just work a little differently. Like the whole idea
mhm.
of men run on a 24-hour hormone cycle, women run on a 28-day hormone cycle. And so there's going to be time, I'm not sure if you know anything about this, but I'm going to like say it anyway, but
Yeah, go for it.
there's in each different week of our cycle, we feel completely different. Obviously, as we're getting closer to like our period, we're gonna start feeling like you're not feeling as well, and then you feel like not great, super low energy towards the end of that. And during that time, you're not gonna want to go to the gym and lift heavy. If anything, a lot of people don't know this. You're not supposed to lift heavy weights when you're on your period, because I don't know the way my mom described it. It was something about the energy of chi. I could be totally botching this, but it's like when you're lifting heavy weights, but energy's going down. It sounds a little like while you're on your period, energy's going down, and you're lifting weights, you're messing with that energy flow. And
Hmm.
that's why you're not going to feel as good. And like when your body's just going through so much, like don't put it through that kind of work. It doesn't mean don't show up for yourself. Like I think that's the misconception too, is like they hammer it into women like listen to your intuition though, listen to your body. But I think, and myself included, I've gone down the rabbit hole with this too, like, oh, just because I don't feel good, that means I don't have to go outside and go on a walk. I can just like do nothing. If you are like really not okay and you're like on your deathbed feeling that sick, sure, stay in bed.
Hmm.
But we can't take advantage of like, oh, I'm coming closer to my period. I'm not feeling as well. I'm not going to do any exercise. Like even if you do light stretching, move your body in a way, that alone is still showing up for yourself. By you not doing anything, again, if you just need that one day, that's fine, but you're almost telling yourself we're not important enough to go out and do it, like work out and do this for ourselves. It's not about making ourselves feel bad. It's about showing up for yourself. Like
You're
if you're
taking
not feeling
care.
great, your body needs to move a little still.
No, absolutely. You're taking care of yourself. Like, it really is. Like, and that's one thing beautiful about women is having that intuition and having that feeling that sometimes guys will either let ego, pride, whatever the case may be, in that moment kind of get in the way of it. But like when you're really like in tune with yourself, like it is the baby steps. It is like, hey, like even though you may not feel the best, this might help you feel a little bit better. You going
Mhm.
outside, getting natural sunlight. If it's too cold, then okay, then doing something else for yourself, whether it's journaling or lighting
Yeah.
a candle or eating something a little bit more healthy and nourishing. Like just listen. Like in that moment, you don't have to feel 100%. You don't have to lift crazy or do whatever it is, but it's just showing up for yourself. And it's the little things
Yes.
specifically that end up making the most difference. Like, and even if it's gratitude and you're like, hey, like I really feel horrible,
Yeah.
then like put on something that will make you feel better. Like
Yes.
whether it's a movie that inspires you or a song, and then you can close your eyes and just like get back into a happier state. It really is like state management, especially like when you're also feeling on top of that not so great, because our
Hmm.
state will help us feel a little bit better. It helps us get to a place of kind of more nourished, I guess you can say, like when our body's experiencing so much too. Like, I mean, you can also relate that to like, in a way, if someone just doesn't feel good, like sickness and stuff, like, of course, recover, but it's one of those things too, like, don't neglect your health, even though, like,
Yes.
you get what I
Don't
mean? Like,
abandon
just
ship.
correct, just baby steps. Like,
Hmm.
sometimes it really is just the baby steps. Like, when your body's experiencing so much or when you're going through a lot, it's just nurturing yourself. And that's okay. That's
Yeah.
self improvement too. And I feel like a lot of the world, like, because, where society will sometimes like breed off the egotistic stuff, like whatever. But it's like sometimes we're like, I in general. You might not feel the best. So it's just the babying, it's just the nurturing. But like, dude, you would do it for someone else. Why can't you do it for yourself?
Yes. Something I want to add to that, the way that I've been describing it recently is compassionate discipline. Like
Hmm.
you can still have that discipline, show up for yourself, eat the right foods, do the workouts, do the this, but don't be so restrictive or hard on yourself that you're just not living a good life. Like
Hmm.
when I say compassionate discipline, show up for yourself every day, whatever that might look like, as much as give it your all. Even I see people say, even if your all one day is 30% because you just really don't feel good, as long as you're giving that 30% and that 30% equates to your 100% for that day, that is perfectly fine. It's knowing when you're just feeling lazy and you genuinely are like, you're trying to, like, that resistance is coming up and you're just not like, oh, let me just skip it today, and pushing through and having that discipline. But then on the other end, knowing when you're just really not feeling well and having compassion for yourself and being like, let's be honest with ourselves, like, we don't feel good today and that's okay. And don't take advantage of this compassionate discipline. But what, like you said, what can we do that's going to still equate to making us feel good that day?
Absolutely. I love that because it is true. Like, I mean, I know it can be oversimplified by just showing up, but that's what that saying actually means is just show up.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's going to be times where your workout is not going to be great. It's going to suck. There's
Mm-hmm.
going to be times where you create and you don't feel like it was 1,000%. And either one or two things, you go back to the drawing board or you share it. But in that moment, you still showed up. And sometimes even for a client, sometimes even like in that moment you might not feel 100%, but then like something by you giving brings something out of you, you start feeling better. Like it is something about just showing up, you end up still feeling better.
Yeah.
Like there's been times where I'm like, man, like my head's not right, I'm not feeling the best, and like, okay, well, I will play a game with myself. Okay, just do 8 reps. Just do 2 sets. Do 1 set. Walk
Yeah.
for 10 minutes.
One
Walk
more.
around the block. Yeah, and then you end up like okay, you kind of start kicking into gear and you showing up. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
not be full capacity, but at the same time, you'd be surprised what you have the ability to do. So
Yeah.
that compassionate discipline. I love that verbiage because it's true. It's
Yeah.
like you're not treating yourself like crap. You're not being like you're still like, hey, like I acknowledge the fact. I'm not bottling up the fact that I'm not feeling the best, but I'm understanding. And now I'm redirecting my energy to slowly get myself back to what I want to feel like. And
Mm-hmm.
even if it's a process, even if it takes a week, a month,
Yeah.
it's
You're still
something too.
doing
Like,
it.
exactly. When people go through, as I like to call it, seasons, winter, all that stuff, their winter of like darkness or things just feel like when it rains, it pours, oh my God, my life. And it's like, even those moments, just stacking the small wins, even if it's one thing, like, hey, like my job isn't going great, like relationships going through it, but at least I've been showing up at the gym or I've been eating healthier. Sometimes that one win is like an anchor.
It
And
just,
like,
woo, lifts you right back
yep.
up.
And you're like, oh, thank God. And then you start building more resilience and you start stacking that stuff up. So, if there's one thing I think both you and I could agree on is just like, hey, like, keep going. We're here, hopefully, through our content, through our example, to keep showing you that we're showing up, putting up the resilience, and like whatever season you're going through, it will pass. That's the whole point of it. But don't lose yourself in the pain of that season too completely.
Yeah.
Don't let that season be years or decades because you're just going to constantly be living it over and over. And
Yep.
it's one of those
Agree.
things where and it becomes hard. So, what we're here to do is help. And Maggie, I know that we're about like the hour mark. So for the sake of all the generous people who have been listening to us, we both appreciate you.
Yes.
Where can we find you? And is there anything new or any upcoming projects or anything you just want to share? Like, please, like I want to give you the space to do that as well.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course.
You guys can find me on Instagram. It's maggie.may.coaching, MAE. If you search up MAY, you won't find me. And then my most recent projects right now is I did just start a new podcast called the Cultivating Confidence podcast. You're probably going to see this one on here too because we're going to share this between the two of us. I've just been like really talking about everything in relation to confidence, authenticity, relationships, lifestyle, wellness, feminine energy, masculine energy, like you name it, anything related to confidence, I'm talking about it. And I am such a talker. Like I'm a woman of detail, I say. So I think that is like an amazing platform add on that I've brought into my business. And then what I also have is I do have a one-on-one coaching offer as well. So basically what this is it's a 12-week coaching experience where I walk you through step by step with the four-step process that I used in order to gain my confidence of this whole story, my origin story I told you earlier. And I walk you through how to overcome any anxieties, insecurities, fears, self doubt in order to step into the most confident, authentic version of yourself. And that is something I'm so proud of. And I would, anybody that's interested, send me a DM on Instagram and just let's start a conversation and see if it'd be a good fit for you.
I love that. I'm also going to invite as well the audience. Please feel free if you want to DM me as well. And, mindset coach and all that as well. And I'm here to help. And, thank you so much. Ah,
He's
there
here
it
to
is. The
help.
thumbs up. I love that. And we appreciate you guys for being here. And, we cherish your time because, that's one of the most precious things. So,
Yes, thank
Maggie,
you
thank
guys.
you so much.
Thank you, Josh.
Specifically for time. Thank you for being here, and I'm excited. I feel like we, put a lot of love and a lot of value in this. So
I think so. A lot of love, a lot of value, a lot of gems.
got that right. See you in the next one. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye.